Welcome back to Runeverse. I'm Andrew, and today I'm playing Crossfox, a solo hex crawl. So recently I became aware of this genre of games called hex crawls. I'm always interested in solo games, and I have a craving for role-playing games, though I haven't played them in a while. I've been watching a good bit recently of some YouTube channels called Geek Gamers and The Dungeon Dive, and getting more into the headspace of role-playing games, and also came across this term Hexcrawl, so I decided to just search itch.io for print and play hex games. So there's a lot of video games on there, but I know there's a lot of print and play indie stuff as well. I found this game by Joy Peddler Games, and just before recording I looked them up. I found them on DriveThruRPG and found out they have also adventures for a role-playing game called Fallen, which I also happen to have bought recently. So both of these are PDFs that I bought and then printed out and stapled together to make booklets. So it's kind of a crazy coincidence that these people also made content for that game that I happen to have also picked up. But anyway, today we're going to be cross-foxing, and they included information about a crossfox. So I thought it was just a clever name or something, maybe not that clever, but it's actually the name of the animal. So there's a little bestiary of just actual animals. Maybe bestiary is not the best word. So apologies if my head is covering some of that, but it says, although occasionally seen abroad during the day, are nocturnal in their habits, and their character is marked by timidity, suspicion, and cunning. Nearly the whole day is passed by the fox in concealment, either in its burrow underground, in the fissures of the rocks, or in the middle of some large fallen treetop or thick pile of brushwood, where he is well hidden from any passing enemy. They leave their burrows generally when 3 or 4 months old, and in all predatory expeditions, each individual goes singly and plunders on his own account and for his own especial benefit. So the Crossfox is our character in this game. That's who we're going to be. You can see the rules say you are a fox, and I don't think they just mean it as a compliment. I don't think we're going to play the full game today, mostly because I don't have a lot of time tonight, and I don't know how long the game takes. But basically, this is the procedurally generated map. You start with this hex grid, and I rolled up at the beginning. We've got our starting burrow here, and the goal is to find 3 food caches, which are seated here, here, and here, again randomly, and then also find a mate. And our mate is here, potentially. I think the game does assume we are playing a male fox, so you could easily switch that if you wanted to play a female fox, though, as long as you're willing to hunt down your mate. But we've also got 3 predators seated onto the board, here, here, and here. And the rules didn't say that this can't happen, but I actually rolled the same exact space as a predator for my burrow, which I think means we're just going to start out with a fight. So as we just read in that little bit of fox lore, we're probably a young fox just separated from the family. Maybe we're out on our first hunt, on our first adventure, living on our own. And in this game, all burrows, we only have 1 so far, but all burrows are fast travelable, so you can basically teleport between burrows. And so I imagine we've just come out of the burrow over on this side. Wherever our family is off somewhere else, not on the map, and we've left them behind. We pop out of the burrow here, and boom, there's a predator right off the bat, which I guess is a good opportunity to find out how the combat works. I should mark my stamina, so I'm going to use these dice for that. So I've got 3 stamina and 0 wounds. 3 wounds could potentially be lethal. Here is the encounter table here, and there it is at an extreme angle. But the normal roll is just a d8 to see what type of animal we've encountered. The casual roll, if we wanted an easier experience, we could roll a d20, and less likely that we get a grizzly bear, and more likely that we get a hare or a red-tailed Bassaris. But you know what? I'm just going to use the normal rules. Let's do a d8 and see what we get. A 5. 5 is a wolf. It's waiting outside our burrow. The wolf, as his strength, agility, and cunning tend to render him the most destructive enemy. It is large, stout, and compactly built, being more fleet and perhaps better winded than the fox. The wolf is seldom pursued. Wolves are generally fond of sitting on the tops of the eminences or small hills in the prairies, from which points of vantage they can easily discover any passing object on the plain at a considerable distance. All packs of American wolves usually consist of various shades of color and varieties nearly black, have occasionally been found in every part of the United States, hunts in packs, but is also often seen prowling singly over the plains in search of food. Looking back at the wolf on the encounter table, so the Crossfox has 4+ power. We'll explain what all this is in a second. The wolf also has 4+ power. The wolf has 3 attack dice. The Crossfox also has 3 attack dice. And we both have D8 speed as well. So it actually looks like an even match, which is not great. If you're in an even fight, even if you win, you probably are pretty beaten up. But the other option is running away, which is where the speed would come into play more heavily, and there's just as much chance they catch up to us anyway. So you know what? I think we are a young and feisty fox, and we're going to jump out of this burrow and take the wolf on. The wolf also has an adjusted cost of 3, which is not great because we only have 3 stamina. Basically, the adjusted cost would mean we can gain a big benefit in combat by spending 3 stamina. But if I did that, I would have 0 remaining, which would mean I'm in a weakened state and my power is reduced from 4 to 6. It sounds like 6 is bigger, but it actually would be a disadvantage. So I don't think that makes sense. So I'm going to start by fighting. We both have to roll our speed, and we both have D8. So as a fox, I assume I get to be red. I'm going to roll a red die as my D8, and the silver fox will get the white one, and see who gets higher. So I got a 4 against the fox's 1, which means I get to go first. And I'm going to roll 3 attack dice. The attack dice are always 6-sided. And because my power is 4+, I'm looking for die results of 4 or more. So now you can see why 6 power would be bad, because I would need dice results of 6 or more. So let's roll 3 dice and go for 4+. That is 2 hits, which means the wolf gets to try to defend, and the wolf gets to roll 2 dice because there are 2 potential hits. The wolf is looking for its own power rating of 4+ to try to block those. So 4+ is 2 blocks, so no hits. Now the wolf gets to attack me, and we're evenly matched. So we're just going the same thing. They got 2 hits, and I blocked one of them, and one of them missed. And our Crossfox gets a wound. We'll attack the wolf back. Got 2 hits. The wolf blocks neither of them and gets 2 wounds. So now we have the advantage. But nothing really happens until either A, we decide to run away, or B, somebody gets 3 wounds. So we go again with the wolf's turn, and that is only 1 hit, which we do not block. So we're taking some wounds very early in the game. We got 1 hit only, and the wolf blocked it. The wolf hits us 1 time. We don't block it, and there we go. We got 3 wounds. We're so close. Beating the wolf. Now that we have 3 wounds, I have to roll to see if I die. A 1 or 2 means I die, and maybe we'll just use this wound die. And that's the end of our Crossfox right off the bat. So what I could have done was in between combat rounds, try to run away. And we'd use these fleeing and chasing rules. We'd both roll our speed, which are both D8s, and see who gets to 10 first. Whoever rolls 10 first is the winner of that contest. I also could have, as I mentioned, spent 3 stamina. But you know what? I can do it now. You know what? I forgot about that. The adjustment cost, you can spend your stamina equal to the predator's adjustment cost, which in this case is 3. So I'm going to spend 3 stamina. And there are 2 options when you do that. One of them is that you get 2 extra dice on your attack roll. But I didn't want to do that because now having 0 stamina means I only hit on 6s. Which means I'm still likely to lose here. But the other option is to prevent a wound or negate a wound. So I'm going to negate that last wound. And now the option is, now I've got 0 stamina. So if I keep fighting, I only hit on 6s, but the wolf still hits on 4+. So I think we have to run away now, which is going to make things very rough. In fact, I wonder if we just need to get lucky here and beat the wolf. Because if we do beat the wolf, that's a food cache. We get to eat if we've successfully killed another animal, or a carnivore, or an omnivore, I'm not sure. But killing the wolf would yield a food cache and help us regain a lot of stamina, which we just lost. If we slink away now, we'll have a hard time roughing it in the wilds. So for the sake of the playthrough, I'm going to decide that we do beat the wolf. We're going to get very lucky here. I'm going to roll the dice so that you can see that I'm cheating, or if I'm cheating. But I do want to be able to continue the game. And I want to be able to continue the game without necessarily, like I said, really having a big struggle of it. So I'm going to roll my 3 dice. This time I now need 6s, and I did get a 6. So there is a chance we win here. But if the wolf rolls a 4, 5, or 6, it will block it. I got a 4, so that's the roll that I'm going to ignore. We're going to say the wolf got a 3 instead. Because otherwise the wolf will take its next turn, and there's a good chance that that will kill us because we'll have a hard time blocking as well now that we need 6s. However, the wolf is actually not dead. It does have 3 wounds now, but I'm going to roll this die, and it's the same thing. If it gets a 1 or a 2, it dies. Otherwise, on a 4, it gets to slink away, just as we would have done. So we now have a critically wounded enemy, critically wounded predator, and we can try to use the scent table to track it. So that's a little awkward jumping into a combat right off the bat, but let's see some more of these mechanisms of the game in action. So I'm going to roll on the tracking a scent table, and this is a D6. Got a 1. Man, can't catch a break. You search fruitlessly all day, lose 2 stamina, and the scent is lost. So after all that, the wolf is getting away, and we lose 2 stamina, and we have no stamina. So much for things not being a struggle to start out. But if you ever find yourself with no stamina, you're weakened. And losing stamina when you have none requires an encounter check. So on a 1 or 2, another predator will have come and found us. A 3 means at least that didn't happen. So we lost 2 stamina because we spent a bunch of time searching for the scent of the wolf that has now escaped. And technically, we are still in our home hex. We're still at our burrow, and we popped out, we saw the wolf, we immediately started fighting. We didn't even pay attention to where we are. So this table here is going to determine a hex. Actually, the starting hex is on a different page. It's a 1 or 2, it's going to be a plains, 3 or 4 is a forest, and 5 or 6 is hills. We got a 4, that's forest. So let's go in on our home here and draw some trees. At least 1 tree to make it clear that this is a forest space. My next action is going to be to rest. Since I'm at my burrow, resting in a burrow yields 3 stamina and removes 2 wounds. We're back to our starting situation. We can rest 2 turns in a row, but we have to roll an encounter check to see if another predator comes and finds us. And I will say the rules are written in a way that is very much like a mix of a technical Hexcrawl adventure, kind of a classic wargaming type of rules, and a very much do what you want, you figure out what should happen type of role-playing game or storytelling game. So it's a weird mix, of just like specifics and then just complete lack of specifics. But I think the game is, you're supposed to get into the mood of a fox and just use the rules as a guide to help tell the story of this fox just living its natural life. So let's jump to like the beginning of the turn that I completely skipped because we just jumped straight into that fight. I might even have been supposed to do this first. Again, because of the kind of lack of clarity, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if the rules expected there to be a predator in my burrow, but we're going to want to roll for the terrain, weather, and atmosphere, roll for a random event, roll for an item of interest, roll for a terrain event. I think I went out of order there, but then decide other activities or move to a new hex. Actually, yeah, step 4. I skipped to step 4 of resting. So we determined the terrain, that we're in a forest, but let's set the mood and the weather. I think I'm going to skip the fight, but this next turn when we're resting, we're going to be resolving what is going on. So I'll roll weather in blue and atmosphere in white. 6 on the weather means there's sunny, clear skies, and a comfortable temperature. And the atmosphere, also a 6, means peaceful, carefree, and birds chirping. So that is a nice way to rest for sure. Should also roll for a random event. A 4+ on a d6 means there is an event. We're in a forest, so I'll roll a green die. We got a 5. That is a 4+, so we are going to do an event. Event is not the same as an encounter. Encounter means we're fighting one of those monsters from the table we looked at. I said monsters, an animal, a predator potentially. I noticed the rules call them predators, but one of them is a hare. But anyway, this is completely different. This is an event. So I'm going to go to the forest event table, which is this page here, and we're going to roll a d20 on account of there being 20 options. Number 3 says you hear a distant hoot of an owl. The hooting suddenly stops. A predator is in the area. Roll an encounter check with a 1, resulting in an encounter. So this is interrupting our rest. Hopefully a 5 means there's no predator. So that's good. We get close call. Heart skips a beat while resting. I wonder if that is the wolf slinking away, or perhaps there's another predator in the area, or a scavenger of some kind that has found the wolf and is finishing it off, or maybe the wolf succumbed to its wounds and the scavengers are now picking at it, hence the owl. Then step 4 is when we actually decided to rest, and therefore our turn is over. And now that we're back to our starting position, I could rest again and get 3 more stamina, but we'd have to roll for an additional time to see if there's an encounter. And I think we might just want to set out and play what could actually be our turn 1 now. So we're going to start out by exploring. We're going to traverse 1 hex at a time. We also need to choose which direction we're going. So again, we started out here, and I don't think it makes sense to go straight for the mate. I think you're intended to do that last. You need to build up enough of a reputation in the area. Doesn't say that at all in the rules, but you're meant to find some of these food caches first. We actually got 2 in this direction. There's one up here, but as I explained when we were fighting the wolf, there are other ways to get food caches. So we don't necessarily have to go all the way up here, especially with that predator nearby. Actually, I just realized that there are meant to be 3 predators. If you kill one, you have to roll up a new one. So predators can arrive other ways, but these 3 preset ones, there should always be 3. At least that's the sense I got. It says if you kill one, you spawn a new one. I didn't kill it, but for all intents and purposes, it is gone. So I'm going to follow what I believe they meant and roll up a new one. So for this, if you can see the tiny little hex numbers, we can zoom in a second, or for a second, you can see this is 9, 7. Over here we have 12, 8. So these are a D20 and a D12 roll. The D20 being the number of hexes across the page and D12 being up and down. So I'm going to roll a 20 and a 12 for XY coordinates. I got 13 and 10. So 13 is here and 10 is here. There's actually a predator right in that space. Very inconveniently close to the path I wanted to take. So I wonder if I prefer to go around, because if you get close, the predators, if you go to an adjacent hex, the predator can actually smell you nearby. So I'm thinking I might want to go this direction, avoid the predator, and come over here as kind of my loose battle plan. So let's go to 11-9 here. And here we're looking again at that hex terrain table that I tried to use earlier incorrectly. But now that we've determined our burrow space, the rest of the rolls will use this table. Because we are coming from a forest, we're going to use this column. So that's how you use the tables. This is the D20 roll result we're about to roll. And then you refer to the column of the hex you're coming from. So let's roll a D20 on that. Got a 5. Face was in front of that, but you'll have to take my word for it. I can't actually see the layout of the video until after I've done the editing. But a 5 is in the 1 to 8 range, so it's more forest. So let's draw a little tree here. Match it up. And we've got more forest next to our home burrow forest. Roll for weather and atmosphere. We got, it's colder than expected and unpleasant, but it's safe and comfortable atmosphere with rustling leaves. So our Crossfox is a little bit chilled as we make our way through the forest, but otherwise it feels comfortable. Maybe I should have rolled for an event at the same time. Maybe add a red d6 to the mix. A 2 is not a 4+. Well, I think I skipped the items of interest. So let's add a green d6 to the mix for a item of interest is a 6. And that's what would be this table here. So we found a boon or something to celebrate and help you, which is where we get more into the role-playing aspect of things, because what is it? What is the boon? What is it something that can help us? And in fact, how does it help us? The rules mention multiple times that when we find something like a boon, maybe it is in the form of stamina. Maybe it's food, which there's no really food tracker. It's basically just stamina. But you can be rewarded with stamina for sating your curiosity or finding food. Having some food isn't the same as a food cache, which would mean plentiful food, I suppose. But nonetheless, something like a boon might be a little bit of stamina. But if you want some help, they've got an inspiration page here. In case you need some help visualizing your world, use the prompts below. So here's a list of reasons for excitement. It's not listed as being a table, but in fact, there are 8 of them. So let's just roll a d8. A 5 to be the 5th one. You find mushrooms, berries, acorns, or fruit. So pretty straightforward. We found a bunch of food. I guess we're an omnivore after all. So as our fox is walking through the woods, starting to shiver from the cold, and before even realizing it's cold, is wondering if the shivers are coming from fear, remembering the fight against the wolf. The shivering gets so bad we realize, no, it must be the weather. Despite the pleasant nature of this forest, we need somewhere to curl up and stay warm. And finding a nice warm spot at the base of a tree in the dirt and leaves, we find a plant with some delicious looking berries to snack on. And this is where I do wish I had some more guidance. It certainly helped me with the story, but for example, it says rolling a boon or something to celebrate should not result in awarding food caches or a mate, but it could be something like a shady spot to rest and regain stamina. How much stamina? Or finding a quick meal. But what does that mean? Isn't that stamina? If a quick meal isn't a food cache or stamina, then what could it be? I guess it could just be a high point of the story with no mechanical impact, but that seems a little weird. So I feel like I should just get a couple stamina here, but I don't know if it should be 1 or 2. I'm gonna take 2 because I want it and go up to 5 stamina. As far as I know, there's no maximum stamina. In fact, there are circumstances that reference spending 5 or 6 stamina. Like if you're fighting a grizzly bear and you want to pay the adjusted cost, you're going to need at least 6. So one thing that might pop into your mind when I find that little delicious tree of berries is, aren't there any other animals who eat from here? And I think this is where the role-playing really does come in. You are expected to ask questions like that, and you can ask them of the game by using these tables here, the decisions and questions and the outcomes table. So let's ask, are there any other animals who regularly eat from this little tree? We roll and get a 6. Yes, and they're right behind us. Well, if there's an and, then let's, I can't imagine it would be like a bear. I mean, I guess a bear could. Bears do eat berries, but I imagine we're like on the forest floor, not higher up where the bears might forage more regularly. I don't know. Things like wolves and wolverines are probably not prowling around looking for berries. So I'm thinking that whoever eats from here is probably a smaller critter, something that the Crossfox might in fact eat. So I'm going to say that yes, and I can sense them. Maybe they're up in the tree. Maybe it's like some squirrels and they're above in the tree and they're looking down and they're chittering. They're shuffling around. They want to come down there, get their berries or the acorns from the forest floor. But now they see me, the Crossfox predator, and they're scared. And now I can hear them. I know they're there and I'm tempted to climb the tree after them. So let's use the outcomes table and see how that attempt goes. Interesting that there is just as likely to have possible injury or death as we have an overwhelming success. But let's roll. Let's see. Actually, I rolled a 5. Successful and helpful. So we're cuddled down, staying warm. Then we hear squirrels. We turn and look. We climb up the tree after them. I guess you could try to tell the story where this is some kind of magical, non-violent version of nature, but I think we're going to snatch one of those squirrels and then drag it into their own little hole in the tree and use that as our new comfortable, cozy location from the cold as we enjoy a little bit of extra meat, a little bit of extra food, and take another stamina. Hopefully I'm acting in accordance of what they expect or how the game is played. Again, it's a little bit more open than I would prefer. I would prefer to know exactly what my reward is, even if I'm then expected to thematically justify it. Also not totally clear because as I was climbing up in the tree, chasing on squirrels, I was doing this step 4, decide other activities. Step, there are no rules for other activities. There's some like thematic descriptions or mentions of things you might do, and I think my choice there fell in line with that, but they're not codified rules. And again, I think they did that on purpose. It just might not be a perfect fit for how I would want to play. A little bit too much of a board game background. But I mean, I rolled a 6, so I decided to take 2 stamina. I rolled a 5, so I decided to take 1 stamina. But there aren't a lot of mechanics to play with. I mean, there's stamina, there's wounds, and then there's the terrain, which unfortunately we didn't really do a lot of. And I think I am calling it here, so it's just going to be me talking about the game for the rest of the duration of this video. If you're just wanting to see more Crossfox action, go pick up your own copy and play through it. I would be interested to play through a full playthrough for myself, probably not on camera because I could do a lot of the description stuff in my head and just kind of get the sense of what I'm doing without having to verbalize it. But it does grind my gears to not quite know exactly what is supposed to happen. But there are rules for resting and healing, which we use, tracking ascent, which we use, fighting a wounded animal, we didn't quite use. But basically it just has you roll on the outcome oracle, which we just looked at, A result of 1 would mean you die, but 2 through 6 you can interpret as you see fit, is what it says. There's rules for mating, so when you do find your mate, it's not a guaranteed victory. Again, you do need to have found 3 food caches first before you can win, but when you do find her, you still have to track her scent, and if you lose track of her scent, you have to roll for a new location and go looking for her again. Or not necessarily her, but whoever your Crossfox mate is. We use the rules for fighting and wounds. We didn't quite use fleeing and chasing, but we did talk about it a little bit. We used the encounter table. We talked about adjustment costs, which I actually used to avoid a wound. The encounter steps is just part of combat. We use weather and atmosphere, which is just thematic, but it helped us get into the mood, which was the purpose. The inspiration page we used. We didn't use running, so running is another way to traverse the terrain instead of doing exploring, where you're kind of moving slowly. Running requires that you spend 2 stamina to do it, but you might especially be using it if you're running from a predator, running away from a fight. There's also hiding. If you want to rest and you're not in a burrow, you have to make a hiding check first. We use the oracles and the items of interest, basic hex flow, stamina, and traversing the wilderness. Obviously, we didn't go to all those types of wilderness, and we did not roll for any rivers, but there are also no rules for crossing rivers anyway. They just add them in there, and I guess you have to describe for yourself how your Crossfox either gets across or has to go around somehow. There's an example of playing, just very brief though. We've got pages for, we rolled on a forest event, but we've got mountain events, plains, hills, forests, and river. And we looked at a little bit in the back at the animal description. So I think we did get to take a look at most of this little booklet here. I'll have links in the description where you can check it out. I got it on itch.io, where I'll put a link to that. I think it's also on DriveThruRPG, so I'll put that link also in case you prefer one platform or the other. If you're interested in more hexy stuff, let me know. If you're interested in more role-playing stuff, let me know. But I've got plans for both, possibly eventually. I've got so many games I would love to do videos for. But let me know what you're most interested in. And thanks for watching Crossfox. Subscribe so we can get more subscribers, and bye.